Hello everyone, it's Nina and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing a guide for how I annotate my books. So annotating books has definitely grown in popularity over the last couple years on BookTube, Bookstagram, wherever you get your book content from. It's a really fun way to personalize your books and also have a more active role in the reading process. You can go as heavily or as lightly with the annotation as you want. You can just do something that's really easy to remove, like doing a tabbing system, or you can do something more permanent and do a lot of highlighting or writing in the margins. I'm going to start off with the reasons for why I annotate and what I choose to annotate in my books. And we're also going to talk about all the materials that I use when annotating. I also want to separate how I annotate for fun as well as how I annotate when I'm doing stuff for school. So with that intro out of the way, let's get into the video. So starting off, we have the general question of why I annotate. So in terms of pleasure reading, it's mostly just for marking out my favorite moments. I don't really mark a lot in my books unless it's a series I know I'm going to be coming back to, or it's a book that I've already read before and I really like. And for school, it's obviously for the purpose of furthering my learning and finding things that I want to talk about in class or use for future papers. I also want to say that for school, I only do digital annotating. I made the choice when I started graduate school that I wasn't going to have a million papers flying around like I did in undergrad. It just makes a lot more sense for my workflow to have all of my readings for school be digital. And I have a pretty different system for that compared to what I do when I'm reading a book for fun. Since all of my for fun reading tends to be physical books, I want to talk about the materials that I use when I'm annotating. The first one obviously is a tabbing system. So there's two main collections of tabs that I use. The first one is this set of post-it tabs. These are pretty readily available. I can get these from Target really easily, but they obviously are very bright neon and only have a very limited color selection. So I also have these more fun tabs. I originally got these from Shein, but I'm pretty sure you can get them from Amazon, which I know, is that necessarily any better than from supporting Shein? And I'm pretty sure these are definitely a resold AliExpress type of item. One thing I really like about them is that they have a ruler on them, so if you're doing any underlining in your book, you have a nice flat surface to write across. And speaking of underlining, I usually do all of my underlining as well as writing in any comments with just a zebra mild liner. It's not the most fine tip pen out there, but I usually don't have a lot of extensive comments that I write in the margins of my books. And I like the look of the colored underlining, so I'm fine having this be dual duty both for underlining and writing. Another option that I don't have with me, but I think is a good one if you're interested in writing in your books, but you're not sure if you want to fully commit to it, is to try out using a friction pen since those are erasable. That way if you're writing in a book and you either mess up or you don't like the way it looks, you can just erase it and then it doesn't look like you wrote in your book at all. But if you are looking for a more permanent pen, I definitely would recommend going for one that's a bit more of a fine tip that doesn't have a very large ballpoint. So definitely not the Pilot G2. This is usually my standard pen for writing in my reading journal, but I find when it comes to annotating, specifically for underlining, it tends to just be too large of a ballpoint that it will rub a lot of ink along the side of my ruler and then just inadvertently smear ink across the whole page. Now let's talk about what I choose to annotate in my books. It does vary a little bit from book to book, which you'll see in some of my example books over here, but generally there are a couple categories that I will assign tab colors to. The first one is plot explanation. So this can be stuff like how magic systems work, world building stuff that seems relevant to the plot, and basically anything that will make me go, oh, okay, so I can kind of mark that out to remember and go back to when I had that epiphany. Just kind of arbitrarily, I assigned the plot sections of books to have a green colored tab, and the shade of green will vary from book to book depending on which type of tab I'm using. So I will sometimes use one of the green tabs from this collection as well. The other main category I usually mark out is my favorite scenes. These are the ones that make me feel like anything, basically the parts in the book that make me go, oh my god, this is such a good book, both in a positive and negative emotion-wise. And this is mostly so that if I want to go back and reread my favorite parts, I can easily. This usually overlaps with the romance scenes since that's usually my favorite parts of the book, and often both of those categories will have a pink colored tab associated with them. Another thing that kind of is dependent on if the book focuses on this or not is if there is any physical descriptions of the characters. I like to imagine what the characters look like and what they're wearing, and that one kind of has been assigned to have a purple-ish colored tab associated with it. I also will sometimes mark out tabs for very good quotes. This is usually something I only do if I really like the writing style of the book and I have previously read it before. I always choose a new color scheme that matches up with the book or book series, and I tried to make that tabbing system consistent across all of the books in the series. So for the Hollow Star Saga, both this book and the previous one in the series have the same color scheme across their tabs. This is the first series I started tabbing, so it kind of is the one that solidified my pink, green, and purple tab system. So all of the romance scenes in this one are pink, the physical descriptions are purple, and the plot stuff is green. And I usually will make a key with the new color scheme at the start of my books. So this is the one for the Hollowstar Saga. This is my one for Scumville Self-Saving System. I only had 2 different color tabs for this one. I decided to tab things that are romance and fan service, as well as the plot explanation. Again, the plot explanation is still green, but I decided to do the romance/fan service category as this like light yellow, just because I felt like it matched the colors in the cover design more. And this is my one for the Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. I have a tab here for Wangxian, which is Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji's like ship name. I have this one for Shi Wei Yang because I really like his character in the Untamed TV show. So I wanted to mark out his scenes in this book. Then I have, again, a generic green to be my plot tab. And I also added in this red tab for every time that Wei Wuxian uses Demonic Cultivation, because I wanted to kind of mark out how his magic is supposed to be different from the other characters. And also he's my favorite character, so I wanted to just mark out some of those scenes that were very relevant to him. And this one I'm still reading, but I have started to tab Husky and his white cat Shizun. And this one is continuing the theme of having a green tab for plot, and then 2 specific tabs that kind of are relevant to the storyline. One is for food, because I noticed they talk about food a lot in showing the relationship of Mo Ran and the Zoan other character. And also this one that I'm using to mark out Mo Ran's like changing feelings for Chu Wanning, because I think that's going to be a major theme throughout the whole series. Here's a look at my 3 Danmei novels that I have tabbed. So that is my tabbing system. Now let's move on to what I usually write in my books. So I usually only underline really brief things to comment on, or with quotes I will underline ones that I really like and I feel like can stand strong outside of the context of the story. As for comments that I write in the margin, they're usually very brief, just like LOL or OMG. Sometimes if I clock foreshadowing or something that stands out plot-wise, I'll make a comment on it, but I usually don't have a comment that's longer than like 4 or 5 words per section. So now with the fun annotation out of the way, let's talk a little bit about annotating for school. So my main system is just to highlight in different colors. So similarly to the 3 colors that I usually use for most of my fun annotations, I also do 3 different colors for highlighting. I should also say I'm coming at this from like a social science background, so if you're a humanities student or a strictly STEM student, you might have a different system. The first one is yellow, which is just for more like general important points of what I think like the thesis statement of the article is, or any key vocab that's shown there. Next one is green that I use for citations that the text is talking about that I think I would like to go back and read as well to get more information on. Like if an article is talking about a very like seminal study that was done in the past and then gives the date that the article was published, I will definitely highlight that and then check in the bibliography to get more details on it, because I think finding that foundation work will be really helpful in building out your own bibliography when you're writing a paper. And the last color I use is blue for highlighting things that I know I want to include in my own paper. And this is usually a color I only use on my second reread through the article. Once I have a general understanding of what an article is about and what like the general thesis statement is, I can pick out the details that I think would be relevant to the topic that I want to talk about. Whenever I'm doing readings for homework or readings for a paper that I want to write, I will always read with a Google Doc open that I can copy and paste what I highlight along with the page number. So that way I basically have the citation ready to go for any paper that might come up. Also in that document, I will bold or highlight what I think the main thesis of the article was. And I also will copy over and highlight the aspects of the article that I think that the professor had told us to look out for as like overall themes. So that way you have all of your notes prepared for you to then talk about them in class. I'm only 1 semester through graduate school, but so far this system has worked for me a lot better than whatever I did in undergrad. I find just having everything be digital instead of having physical papers that I'm annotating has allowed me to be a lot more organized and then have a much more comprehensive list of all of the content that I want to eventually include in class discussion or with papers. So that is my full annotation guide, both for fun and for school. I hope you found this video to be helpful and informative. Obviously with school, annotation is more of a learning tool out of necessity. But I think when it comes to annotating books that you're just reading for pleasure, you shouldn't put a lot of pressure on yourself to make it look particularly pretty. It should be a personal experience of you just enjoying the book whatever way you see fit. That is going to be it for this video. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please consider liking this video or subscribing if you aren't already. Consider following me on the story graph if you want to see the books that I am reading in real time. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!